He planned everything in darkness. He executed his operation before sunrise when the neighborhood slept and streets were empty. He wore a mask to hide his face. He wore gloves to prevent fingerprints. He carried a backpack filled with whatever tools his plan required. He had a gun in a holster strapped to his body, ready for use, if circumstances demanded it. He disconnected security cameras systematically. He disabled monitoring systems with precision. He thought about exposure from almost every conceivable angle that could create risk or leave evidence connecting him to what he was about to do. But before all of that careful planning, before the mask and the gloves in the pre-dawn darkness, before approaching Nancy Guthrie's door with a gun on his hip, he went shopping. And the place he chose to shop may be the single decision that leads investigators directly to his identity. He shopped at Walmart, not at multiple specialty stores across different retail categories to avoid creating patterns. Not at military surplus outlets where tactical equipment leaves less comprehensive transaction trails. Not through anonymous dark web marketplaces where purchases cannot be traced to physical locations. Not at small independent retailers with minimal security camera coverage. Walmart, one of the largest, most comprehensively surveilled, most systematically documented retail environments on Earth. A corporation with transaction databases recording every purchase at every register, in every store with timestamps and product codes and payment information. A retail chain with security camera networks covering every entrance, every aisle, every register lane, every parking lot at every location, and every single item visible on that masked figure in 44 seconds of recovered surveillance footage can be traced to one retailer. The backpack, black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, Walmart exclusive private label brand confirmed by FBI forensic analysis, cannot be purchased anywhere else. The mask, ski mask black, believed to have been purchased at Walmart according to what Sheriff Chris Nanos told CBS News on February 16th. The clothing, dark jacket and light pants, believed to have been purchased at Walmart according to the same reporting. The gun holster, a $10 holster available at Walmart, being closely examined by investigators according to what NewsNation reported. One store, one transaction ecosystem, one network of security cameras, one corporate database of purchase records connecting products to people, to moments, to locations. The man who thought darkness and a mask were his protection went shopping first. And that shopping trip may be his only mistake. On February 16, 2026, 16 days after Nancy Guthrie disappeared from her Catalina Foothills home, the Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed two things that together changed the trajectory of this investigation permanently. The Guthrie family has been cleared completely as suspects, and investigators have spent several days reviewing surveillance footage at local Walmart stores, tracing the equipment that masked figure was wearing when he approached Nancy's door. The investigation is not looking for a random stranger anymore. It is looking for a specific shopper, a man who walked through a Walmart store, put items in a shopping cart, stood in a checkout line, paid for equipment he would later use to take an 84-year-old woman from her home. And somewhere in the corporate systems of the world's largest retailer, that transaction is still there. Objects do not forget. Retail systems do not forget. Security cameras do not forget. And the man who bought everything at Walmart gave investigators something the darkness was supposed to prevent: a paper trail. But the Walmart evidence is not the only investigative thread closing in on identification. Because while forensic analysts have been tracing purchase records and reviewing store surveillance footage, behavioral analysts have been asking a different question entirely. Not what did he buy, not where did he shop, but why did he take Nancy Guthrie at all? And the answer to that question, the theory that former FBI profiler Jim Fitzgerald has developed after examining this case, suggests something far more disturbing than a random abduction. Something that explains anomalies other theories cannot address. Something that changes what the public should be looking for and what behavioral patterns matter. What if Nancy Guthrie was never the target at all? What if for months, someone sat alone watching Savannah Guthrie on television every single morning, studying her voice, her movements, the way she looked directly into the camera? What if that person believed she was speaking to them personally? What if they built something hidden in their home? A shrine locked away where no one else could see it. A collection of photographs and recordings documenting an obsession that had been building for months or years. And what if when they realized they could never reach Savannah herself, protected and inaccessible in New York, they found the next best thing? Her mother. Before we examine how the Walmart evidence and the behavioral profile are converging toward the same person, how retail forensics and psychological analysis are both pointing at identification, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Because understanding how complex investigations like this actually work, how multiple evidence streams narrow possibilities systematically, how forensic analysis and behavioral profiling complement each other, that is not speculation. That is operational intelligence. That changes what tips matter. That changes what the public needs to recognize. New investigations every week examining real cases with real evidence producing real conclusions. If you think the Walmart connection combined with the FBI profiler's theory is what breaks this case open, hit that like button and tell us in the comments which evidence stream you think leads to identification first, the purchase records or the behavioral patterns. Let us start with the Walmart evidence because understanding how comprehensive retail forensics actually works, how transaction databases and security camera networks create investigative trails that suspects rarely anticipate, that explains why shopping at Walmart may have been the critical mistake. The FBI confirmed officially after forensic analysis by their Video Forensic Analysis Unit, using an osteometric board reconstruction conducted at the actual scene, that the suspect was carrying a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack. Ozark Trail is Walmart's private label outdoor brand. This product is sold exclusively through Walmart stores. It cannot be purchased at any other major retailer anywhere. It does not exist in outdoor specialty stores like REI or Cabela's. It does not exist in sporting goods chains like Dick's Sporting Goods or Academy Sports. It is not available through Amazon or other online marketplaces, except through Walmart's own online presence. One retailer, one transaction system, one purchase database. This exclusivity is forensically significant. When investigators confirm through product analysis that a specific item is a private label exclusive brand, they have immediately eliminated every other retail environment from consideration. They know with certainty that if someone acquired this backpack through legitimate retail purchase, they acquired it at Walmart. The FBI's Forensic Video Analysis Unit did not make a casual identification. They used an osteometric board at the actual scene to establish precise measurements. They analyzed the backpack visible in recovered surveillance footage frame by frame. They compared visual characteristics against product databases. They confirmed the specific model and size. 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker Pack Black. That product has a specific SKU in Walmart's inventory system. Every sale of that specific SKU at every Walmart location across Arizona and surrounding states creates a transaction record, date, time, store location, register lane, items purchased, payment method. If paid by credit or debit card, the transaction links to cardholder identity. If paid by cash, the transaction still creates a record with timestamp and location data, and the person still appears on multiple security camera angles during their time in the store. Sheriff Nanos told CBS News on February 16th that investigators believe the mask worn by the suspect in the doorbell camera footage was purchased at Walmart. The dark jacket and light pants visible in surveillance are believed to have been purchased at Walmart, though he noted these items are not exclusively sold there. The gun holster, a $10 holster available at Walmart, is being closely examined by investigators according to News Nation reporting. When all four items, the exclusive backpack, the believed Walmart mask, the clothing, the holster, are considered together as a complete equipment profile. Investigators are not looking for someone who visited multiple specialty stores. They are looking for someone who at one point or across multiple visits acquired every visible piece of equipment through one ecosystem. That is a specific behavioral signature. Someone who equipped themselves entirely through accessible mainstream retail, rather than through specialized sources. Someone who chose convenience and cost over operational security. Someone who did not understand or did not care that Walmart surveillance and transaction documentation would create the exact trail investigators needed. Modern Walmart stores maintain surveillance and transaction documentation more extensive than most people understand. Point-of-sale systems record every transaction with complete itemized lists of products purchased with SKU codes. These records exist in corporate databases accessible to investigators with appropriate legal process. They do not disappear. Transaction history is maintained systematically. Loyalty program data connects purchase history to specific customer accounts with addresses, email contacts, phone numbers, complete transaction histories across multiple visits. Security cameras cover every section of every store, every register lane, every entrance and exit. Parking lot surveillance captures vehicles during the same time frame as interior transactions. Even cash purchases that avoid credit card trails do not create invisibility. A person who pays cash for an Ozark Trail backpack still appears on multiple camera angles during their time in the store. They still show up in parking lot surveillance, potentially with visible vehicle and license plate. Investigators examining Walmart surveillance have specific parameters that narrow the review process from impossible to systematic. The Ozark Trail hiker pack, specifically in 25-liter size in black. That product has a specific SKU. Every sale of that specific product at every Walmart in Arizona creates a searchable record. The time frame, the weeks or months before February 1st, narrows the transaction pool further. Each additional evidence stream, cell phone location data showing suspects near specific Walmart stores during relevant time frames, vehicle information from parking lot surveillance, correlation with other purchased items, reduces the transaction pool from hundreds of backpack purchases to specific high-probability candidates. This is how retail forensics narrows suspects, not by creating theory about who did it, by systematically eliminating everyone who did not make these specific purchases in these specific combinations during this specific time frame. But while investigators have been tracing Walmart purchases and reviewing store surveillance footage, behavioral analysts have been examining a completely different dimension of this case, and what they see suggests the Walmart shopper and the person matching a very specific psychological profile are the same individual. Jim Fitzgerald is not someone guessing about behavioral patterns from watching crime television. His credentials are operational. When he was sent to San Francisco in 1995 to work the Unabomber case, he was supposed to be there for 30 days. He stayed for the duration. The FBI had a profile written years earlier by John Douglas. But when the Unabomber's manifesto was published, Fitzgerald saw linguistic patterns the original profile had not captured. He rewrote the profile. He focused on linguistic signature, word choices, syntax, themes appearing repeatedly in the bomber's writings. That work, combined with the manifesto being published and Ted Kaczynski's brother recognizing the writing style, led to the arrest ending 17 years of federal investigation. Fitzgerald stayed in the behavioral analysis unit for 12 more years. 9/11, anthrax attacks, DC sniper, cases where the FBI needed behavioral characteristics communicated publicly to help people identify suspects before formal evidence existed. And when Fitzgerald examined the Nancy Guthrie case, he saw something everyone focused on identifying: the masked man is missing. He saw a case where the real question is why Nancy Guthrie was taken at all. Who was Nancy Guthrie? An 84-year-old woman living alone in Tucson, retired, not wealthy herself, not famous, not someone with enemies or dangerous connections, but she had one characteristic that made her different from every other 84-year-old woman in Tucson. Her daughter is Savannah Guthrie, co-host of NBC's Today Show, on television every morning, looking into millions of homes, looking into the camera, speaking directly to viewers, creating the illusion of intimacy that television always creates. Fitzgerald spent years working with NBC security when he was an FBI agent in New York. About 4 times every year, the head of security at NBC would contact him. Another female journalist or on-air personality is being harassed. Someone sending emails. Someone showing up at events repeatedly. Someone becoming obsessed. This happened constantly. Female television personalities attract stalkers at rates far higher than male counterparts. The difference between actors and television hosts is fundamental. Actors look at other actors when they perform. Viewers watch them interact with others. But people like Savannah Guthrie look into the camera. They speak as if talking to you personally. They say good morning as if standing in your living room. They share details about their lives, their families, their mothers. And to someone predisposed to delusional thinking, someone whose brain does not process social interaction normally, that creates a relationship, not real, but one that feels absolutely real to them. Erotomania is the clinical term, listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, a formally recognized delusional disorder. The person experiencing erotomania holds a fixed belief that another person, usually someone of higher social status or celebrity, is in love with them. They interpret ordinary interactions as secret signals meant specifically for them. A glance into the camera becomes eye contact meant for them alone. A particular phrase becomes coded message. A color of clothing becomes a sign, all building into a narrative where the celebrity is trying to communicate love but is prevented by external forces. Security teams, publicists, family members. The barriers are the problem in their mind, not the delusion. And when those barriers cannot be removed, when the fantasy cannot be fulfilled, some people turn violent. John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan in 1981 because he was obsessed with actress Jodie Foster. He believed killing the president would prove his love, would make her notice him. Rebecca Schaefer, a young actress, was murdered at her home in 1989 by a stalker who had been following her for years. He showed up with flowers. When she politely turned him away, he shot her. These are documented cases where obsession with a celebrity escalated to violence when the delusion was not reciprocated. Fitzgerald is not saying definitively that Nancy was taken by someone obsessed with Savannah. He is saying investigators cannot rule it out. He is saying the behavioral patterns fit. And if this theory is correct, it changes everything about what the public should be searching for. If the motive is obsession rather than ransom, if the goal is possession rather than money, if the target was always Savannah and Nancy was taken as the closest accessible proxy, then the person responsible has been planning this for months or years. They have been watching Savannah on television every morning. They have been following her career. They have been collecting information about her family. And when they could not reach Savannah herself, protected in New York, they found Nancy, alone in Tucson, accessible. This theory explains anomalies other theories struggle to address. It explains why there has been no credible proof of life despite multiple ransom communications. If the motive is not actually ransom, if money was never the real goal, then the kidnapper would not prioritize proving Nancy is alive. The ransom notes reaching TMZ and other outlets have been inconsistent, poorly constructed, lacking proof of life. The FBI has assessed them as likely coming from opportunists rather than the actual abductor. If the real motive is obsession with Savannah, that makes perfect sense. The actual kidnapper is not sending ransom notes. Opportunists are. The person who took Nancy has a different agenda entirely. This theory also explains why the operation, despite appearing amateurish in visible ways, was ultimately successful. The person seemed nervous in footage. They improvised grabbing foliage to cover the camera. The holster was a cheap $10 Walmart model, designed for revolvers being used for a semi-automatic. Equipment mismatch suggesting no formal firearms training. But despite apparent inexperience, they executed the operation. Disabled cameras, spent 41 minutes inside, removed Nancy, escaped. That combination of inexperience and operational success fits someone who is not a career criminal, but who is intensely motivated by overwhelming psychological need. Someone whose obsession drove them to plan carefully despite lack of experience. The 41 minutes inside Nancy's home takes on different meaning through obsession theory. 41 minutes is a long time. If the goal was simply to grab Nancy and leave, it should not have taken 41 minutes. But if the person responsible is obsessed with Savannah, if they view Nancy not as a kidnapping victim, but as a connection to someone they cannot reach, those 41 minutes make sense differently. They might have been taking time to ensure Nancy was not harmed, gathering her medications, speaking to her, explaining why this was happening, asking questions about Savannah. Someone motivated by obsession might view Nancy as a resource, as a living connection to the person they desperately want to know more about. Fitzgerald referenced the Elizabeth Smart case as documented example of this psychology. Elizabeth Smart was 14 when Brian David Mitchell abducted her from her bedroom in 2002. He held her for 9 months. His motive was not ransom. His motive was possession. He wanted to keep her alive under his control, fulfilling a delusional narrative only he understood. If similar psychology is at play with Nancy, she might still be alive somewhere, being held while the person responsible engages with her in ways that fulfill their psychological need for connection to Savannah. This is where Fitzgerald's theory offers something other theories do not: hope based on documented psychological patterns. If Nancy was taken for ransom and the ransom operation failed, traditional kidnapping psychology suggests grim outcome. But if Nancy was taken because someone obsessed with Savannah could not reach Savannah, keeping Nancy alive continues to serve their psychological need. The behavioral profile Fitzgerald created breaks into 2 categories: pre-offense behavior, what this person would have been doing in weeks before Nancy disappeared, and post-offense behavior, what they are doing right now. These are patterns documented through decades of interviewing offenders after they were caught. Patterns that serial rapists followed. Patterns that serial killers followed. Patterns that kidnappers followed. When you interview hundreds of offenders and ask systematic questions about their planning and behavior, patterns emerge. Behavioral patterns consistent enough across different offenders that they become predictive. They become indicators that can be used to identify someone before they are caught. Starting with pre-offense behavior, if you lived with this person or worked with them or knew them well, you would have noticed changes. They would have been unusually distracted and aloof, mentally elsewhere even when physically present. They would have been inordinately busy for unclear reasons. When asked what they were doing, answers would be vague. Just running errands, taking care of things, working on a project. They would have been self-absorbed beyond normal baseline, focused inward on their own concerns in ways that made normal interaction difficult. They would have been spending more internet time than usual, and if you saw what they were looking at, it would seem unusual. Searches about Savannah Guthrie, articles about kidnappings, true crime forums, maps of Tucson, satellite imagery of specific neighborhoods. These are preparation. They would have been purchasing odd materials. We have seen the surveillance footage. The suspect was wearing a balaclava, gloves, carrying a backpack, wearing specific shoes and clothing, had a gun in a holster. Every single one of those items had to be acquired before February 1st. If someone you know suddenly bought a ski mask, rope, zip ties, duct tape, flashlights, a holster, any combination of materials that seemed unusual for their normal activities, that would be significant. Most people do not purchase ski masks unless going skiing. Most people do not buy rope and duct tape and zip ties together unless equipping themselves for something specific. The Walmart purchases themselves are indicators. They would have possessed what Fitzgerald describes as an abduction kit. Serial rapists have rape kits. Serial killers have kill kits. An abductor would have an abduction kit. It could be in a backpack, in a box in their garage, in a duffel bag in their car trunk, but it would exist as a prepared collection. And critically, if you knew this person well enough to see their private life, you might have noticed an unhealthy fixation on one or more female celebrities. Not casual fandom, something more intense. Constant talk about Savannah Guthrie, watching every episode of The Today Show, rewinding segments, recording episodes, commenting obsessively about her appearance, her voice, her mannerisms, interpreting ordinary broadcast moments as having special significance, believing Savannah was communicating with them personally, and possibly evidence of fixations on other high-profile women, because stalkers experiencing erotomania often do not fixate exclusively on one person. They move from target to target, each time convinced this person is the one. If someone you know displayed this pattern combined with unusual purchases combined with increased internet activity about Savannah or about Tucson, that combination becomes worth reporting. One additional detail Fitzgerald emphasized repeatedly is that this person has familiarity with Tucson, not necessarily living there currently, but someone who knows the area, someone who has spent time there, someone who understands the geography. Because whoever took Nancy did not stumble upon her house randomly. They knew where she lived. They knew the specific address. They knew the layout of her property. That level of geographic knowledge does not come from Google Maps. It comes from having been in that area multiple times, from familiarity built over time. If someone you know used to live in Tucson, has family there, has visited repeatedly, has been asking unusual questions about the Catalina foothills, that geographic connection combined with other indicators becomes significant. Moving to post-offense behavior, the period after Nancy disappeared, but before surveillance footage was released publicly, February 1st through February 10th, 9 days when the person responsible believed they had gotten away with it. During that window, their behavior would have changed observably. Their schedule would have been altered, especially the weekend of January 30th through February 1st. Normal patterns disrupted, missing work, skipping family functions, making excuses. They would have been displaying odd late-night hours, awake at 2 or 3 in the morning, driving around, leaving the house without explanation. They might have claimed to be out of town for unclear reasons. They might have been driving a rental car for no apparent reason, trying to avoid having their own vehicle connected. They would have been showing observable mental strain, sleep disruption, irritability, anxiety, mood swings. Even if they believed they succeeded, the psychological weight of committing violent crime manifests physically. They would likely have been engaging in increased substance use as coping mechanism, drinking more than usual, using drugs to manage anxiety. They might have been over-explaining their whereabouts or creating unsolicited alibis. When no one asked where they were February 1st, they volunteered information anyway. I was home all night. Unprompted alibis are significant red flags. They would have been hyper-vigilant about police presence, checking news constantly, asking if anyone had been contacted by investigators, avoiding areas where law enforcement was operating. They would have been cleaning their vehicle interior repeatedly and obsessively, vacuuming, detailing, washing surfaces. This reflects terror of forensic evidence. If they transported Nancy, they would be focused on removing any trace. They would have been disposing of specific items designed to prevent connection. The bags, the gloves, the clothing worn during the operation, burning them, throwing them away in random dumpsters far from home, discarding them in remote areas. They would have been deep cleaning their residence or garage, scrubbing floors, wiping surfaces. If they stored the abduction kit at home, they would be removing any trace. They might have been destroying digital devices. If they researched online, those digital traces create risk, destroying hard drives, factory resetting phones, deleting browser histories. Then on February 10th, the FBI released surveillance footage. Everything changed. The person responsible realized they had been seen, not clearly enough for immediate identification, but clearly enough that anyone who knew them might recognize something. Their build, their posture, their walk, the items they were carrying. That realization triggered new behavioral changes even more intense. They would have become frenetic, nervous, unstable, highly irritable, moving around physically more than before. They might have changed their appearance, cut hair, shaved facial hair, grew a beard, any alteration to create visual difference from the footage. They would have been following media coverage with obsessive intensity, watching every news report, reading every article, scrolling social media constantly, checking multiple times per hour for updates, monitoring what investigators are saying, monitoring whether anyone has been identified. They would have been conducting frequent searches online specifically related to case updates, checking Google News repeatedly, checking YouTube, searching their own name to see if it appears in connection to the case, searching Nancy Guthrie suspect identified or Nancy Guthrie arrest made. They would have been listening to true crime coverage, podcasts, YouTube channels, independent investigators. They want to know what the public thinks, what theories are circulating, whether anyone suspects them. They would have been monitoring Facebook groups and social media communities dedicated to the case, reading comments, watching for anyone who might mention their name. They might have been calling tip lines with false information, trying to manipulate investigation. They might have been posting speculative theories online, inserting themselves into conversation. They would have been discussing the case excessively with co-workers, friends, family. What do you think happened? Do you think they will catch him? Testing how much people know. And underneath all this behavior, if Fitzgerald's theory is correct, there would be something else. Something that existed before Nancy disappeared and continues to exist now. The shrine. If this person is obsessed with Savannah, they have a physical manifestation of that obsession somewhere. This is not metaphorical. This is an actual, literal, physical collection of objects related to Savannah assembled over months or years, kept hidden from anyone else. It could be in a locked closet, in a steamer trunk in the basement with multiple locks, in a storage unit away from their residence, in their garage where no one is allowed. But it exists, and it contains specific categories of items revealing depth and duration of obsession. Photographs of Savannah, printed images from internet sources, screenshots from Today Show broadcasts, photos taken at public events, some enlarged, some framed, all carefully preserved, recordings of Today Show episodes, segments where Savannah spoke into camera, these replayed hundreds of times, interviews, appearances on other shows, anything featuring her voice, her image, her presence, souvenirs creating tangible connection, ticket stubs from events where Savannah appeared, mail from NBC, items Savannah mentioned on the show that the person purchased to feel closer. If Savannah ever sent any response to fan contact, even generic autographed photo, that would be treasured as proof of communication. Written materials documenting obsession over time, notes about Savannah, letters composed to her never sent, journal entries describing feelings and fantasies. Some people experiencing erotomania write constantly documenting their evolving fantasy. These writings would reveal deeply delusional narrative where the person believes they are in actual relationship with Savannah. Personal recordings if they ever had direct interaction, however brief. Standing outside Today's Show studio when Savannah acknowledged the crowd, attending public events where she appeared. That moment would be recorded and replayed endlessly, every frame analyzed, every word examined for hidden meaning. The shrine is evidence of premeditation. It proves obsession did not develop suddenly. It built over time, months minimum, possibly years. If investigators can locate a shrine through search warrant or someone coming forward, it would provide critical evidence. It would establish motive. It would prove fixation on Savannah. It would demonstrate Nancy was chosen specifically because of her connection to Savannah. And the shrine might contain additional evidence, maps of Tucson, surveillance photos of Nancy's house, notes documenting Nancy's routine, evidence of reconnaissance and planning. If the FBI is taking stalker theory seriously, and given the resources deployed they almost certainly are, there are specific investigative steps happening behind the scenes. They would be reviewing every piece of correspondence Savannah has received over past several years. Fitzgerald mentioned 5 years as reasonable time frame, 5 years of fan mail, 5 years of emails from viewers, thousands, possibly tens of thousands. Somewhere in that volume might be a pattern, someone who wrote repeatedly, someone whose messages became more intense over time, someone who expressed frustration when Savannah did not respond, someone who mentioned Tucson or Nancy, someone whose language suggested delusional thinking. NBC security would have flagged most concerning messages over years. But now, investigators would be going deeper, looking for patterns that seemed insignificant individually, but become significant comprehensively, looking for anyone who mentioned geographic details connecting to Tucson, anyone who referenced Nancy by name, anyone whose language showed erotomania signs. They would be working with NBC security to identify individuals who displayed unusual behavior at public events where Savannah appeared, people who showed up repeatedly at different events, people who tried to breach security, people who sent gifts crossing lines from thoughtful to disturbing. All those individuals would be priority investigative subjects. Their locations February 1st would be verified, their travel records examined, their financial transactions analyzed, and if any have connection to Tucson, they move to top of list. They would be cross-referencing against other stalking cases because stalkers do not typically fixate exclusively on one celebrity. They move from target to target. If someone stalked another female journalist before fixating on Savannah, that pattern would be in system. They would be monitoring online activity. If the stalker has been following Savannah online, they are leaving digital trail. Comments on social media posts, activity in fan groups, searches related to Savannah, and since the abduction that activity might have intensified. Searching for updates, monitoring what Savannah is saying in appeals. That digital footprint could lead directly to identification. In videos Savannah has released since her mother disappeared, the tone has shifted in ways that might not be accidental. "It is never too late to do the right thing," Savannah said in a February 15th video. "You are not lost or alone." That language is striking, empathetic, almost forgiving, offering understanding rather than condemnation. According to Fitzgerald's analysis, there is likely calculated strategic reason for that shift. The FBI's behavioral analysts would be involved in advising what Savannah says publicly. If investigators suspect stalker motivated by obsession rather than financial gain, they would want Savannah to appeal to that psychology, to humanize her mother, to speak as if addressing someone who believes they have connection to her, to offer understanding. Because if the stalker believes Savannah understands them, they might be more likely to keep Nancy alive. This is strategic communication designed to maintain whatever delusional framework is keeping Nancy alive, if obsession theory is correct. Here is where the Walmart evidence trail and the behavioral profile converge toward the same person. Someone who shopped at Walmart for every piece of equipment visible in surveillance footage is someone who chose convenience and accessibility over operational security. Someone who did not understand retail forensics or did not care about creating transaction trails. That behavioral signature fits someone without professional criminal experience, someone who equipped themselves practically rather than professionally, and that matches the profile of someone motivated by obsession rather than by professional criminal intent, someone driven by psychological compulsion to take Nancy as connection to Savannah rather than by calculated financial motive. The $10 Walmart holster is particularly revealing. Not a tactical holster from firearms specialty store, not a law enforcement grade duty holster, not a quality concealment holster from manufacturers who specialize in carry equipment. A $10 basic holster from mainstream retail. This is not equipment selection of someone with formal firearms training. This is not someone with professional operational experience. This is not someone who has carried firearms regularly enough to know what quality means. This is someone who needed to carry a firearm for this specific operation and chose the cheapest readily available option. Combined with all other equipment choices, this creates consistent behavioral picture. Civilian accessibility over professional specification. The cheapest viable option in each category. The most easily available retail source. Someone who equipped themselves from what was available and affordable at the same store where they might shop for ordinary household items. This behavioral consistency narrows suspect profile away from categories of people who would generate different equipment choices based on background. Military veterans who have used tactical holsters would not buy a $10 consumer option. Law enforcement professionals who understand quality retention holsters would not select cheapest available product. Professional criminal operators who invest in quality equipment would not use Walmart consumer products. The $10 holster says civilian, practical, cost-conscious, not trained, not professional, not experienced. And that $10 Walmart holster, like every other item in the suspect's equipment profile, creates a transaction trail, a purchase record, a security camera angle, a moment when a specific person walked through a specific store and put a specific product in a cart and stood in a checkout line and paid for it. Between 40,000 and 50,000 tips have been received by investigators as of February 16th, according to Sheriff Nanos. That volume of public response reflects Savannah's national platform creating awareness, the emotional resonance creating engagement, and the specific public engagement strategy the FBI used releasing surveillance footage. Rather than simply releasing images and hoping for generic tips, the FBI provided actionable specific details the public could recognize. A specific backpack brand and model, a specific height range, specific equipment items. Public recognition creates different memory pathways than general awareness. Someone who sees a specific product they have previously encountered in possession of someone they know, in a context that now makes investigative sense, contacts law enforcement with specific information connecting person to product to time frame. The Ozark Trail backpack is clearest example of this recognition pathway. Millions saw the surveillance footage. Some subset have seen that specific backpack before, not in a store while shopping, in possession of a specific person they know, at a specific time, in a context that combined with the footage created connection. That connection is why tips following footage release produced 4,000 calls within first 24 hours. The footage created specific recognition opportunities that general missing person awareness cannot generate. The Walmart clothing information released February 16th, specifically identifying mask and other items, as believed from Walmart, in addition to definitively confirmed backpack, creates another wave of specific recognition opportunity. Someone who saw a person buying ski mask and black backpack and gun holster together at local Walmart in weeks before February 1st now has context, making that memory investigatively relevant. Investigators are cross-referencing tip information against what retail records are showing. A tip identifying a specific person can be immediately checked against Walmart purchase database for relevant items during relevant time frames. A purchase record showing someone bought relevant items can be checked against tip submissions mentioning that person's name. The convergence of public information and forensic retail evidence creates verification pathways that neither stream generates alone. This is how investigations with massive public engagement become systematically productive rather than overwhelmingly noisy. Not every tip carries equal value. Tips that align with what physical evidence is showing receive immediate elevated priority. The Walmart evidence trail creates the specific framework that elevates the right tips from background noise. 16 days into this investigation, the evidentiary picture assembled is more complete than public perception reflects. Investigators know the suspect is male, forensically confirmed through DNA profile from the glove. They know his approximate height, 5'9" to 5'10", determined through forensic reconstruction. They know his approximate build, average. They know his footwear, sneakers. They know he carried a firearm in a holster. They know the specific backpack he carried, confirmed to product SKU level. They know the general retail source of his equipment, Walmart for multiple items. They know he wore heavy-duty gloves matching a glove found 2 miles from the property. They know that glove's interior carries specific unknown male DNA profile in CODIS. They know DNA distinct from Nancy, and her close circle was collected from inside the property. They know the timing to the minute. Camera disconnect 1:47 a.m. Person detected 2:12 a.m. Pacemaker disconnect 2:28 a.m. They know movement pattern extended to at least 4 miles from home at 10:52 a.m. They know departure route passed through the field where the glove was found. The Guthrie family is officially cleared. 2 previously scrutinized external individuals have been deprioritized. The focus is on a specific external male profile connected to physical and forensic evidence. That is not a description of investigation without direction. That is systematic elimination of substantial portion of possible suspect universe, now focused on convergence of retail forensics, DNA identification, behavioral profiling, and tip verification toward a specific person. The Walmart evidence trail leads to a specific shopper. The behavioral profile leads to a specific psychology. The DNA evidence leads to a specific biological identity. And all 3 are converging. Nancy Ellen Long Guthrie has been missing for 22 days, as of February 23rd. She was born January 27th, 1942. She raised 3 children in Arizona. She has grandchildren who adore her. She attended church where her congregation has prayed every Sunday since she disappeared. She was dropped off at her garage door at 9:50 p.m. January 31st, after a card game with family. She never emerged on her own the next morning. Someone who prepared carefully, who thought about equipment and timing and cameras and operational security, equipped himself at Walmart and walked to her door in the dark. He brought a gun. He brought a backpack. He wore gloves. He bought everything at Walmart, and Walmart remembers. The DNA from the glove he discarded 2 miles from her home is in national database being compared against more than 26 million profiles. The purchase records for the Ozark Trail backpack, the ski mask, the holster, the clothing are in Walmart systems being reviewed by investigators who have spent several days examining local store surveillance footage. The behavioral profile describes someone obsessed with Savannah, who has a shrine hidden somewhere documenting that obsession over months or years. The tips are being cross-referenced against both evidence streams as they arrive by thousands, and all of it is converging toward the same person. One specific man who thought darkness and a mask made him invisible, but who made one critical mistake before any operational security mattered. He made a shopping list, and he shopped at the most documented retail environment in modern commerce. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, contact the FBI immediately. 1-800-CALL-FBI. That is 1-800-225-5324. Submit tips at tips.fbi.gov. The Pima County Sheriff's tip line is 5203514900. The reward is $200,000 total. If you know someone who fits this behavioral profile, if you saw someone purchasing these specific items at Walmart in weeks before February 1st, if you noticed someone obsessively following Savannah Guthrie, whose behavior changed dramatically after Nancy disappeared, call. Because Nancy Guthrie is waiting. 22 days, 84 years old, somewhere. And the Walmart receipt and the behavioral patterns and the DNA profile are all pointing at the same person. Someone knows that person, and $200,000 is waiting for the call that brings Nancy home.